What's up, streamers? So, in the last couple of days, Antifa has garnished some headlines from some unlikely sources, i.e., some politicians, namely Paul Ryan, Nancy Pelosi. They've kind of disavowed and condemned the violence. Also, there's been some news articles in Politico, and I think the Daily Caller also had one talking about their extreme violence and the political version actually went to the point of saying that the DHS and the FBI, since April of 2016, has deemed Antifa a domestic terrorist group and their violence domestic terrorism. So, after reading this article, hearing their speeches and stuff, at first it appears that Trump is validated, and it's kind of a moral victory for the alternative media. We've been talking about Antifa and the violence that they've invoked at these protests, and it sounds great. It's like, oh, we're starting to turn the page. Headed in the right direction. For me, I can't help but to maybe look at this negatively. I agree with the disavowalment and everything, and the condemning of this group. I myself think it's a terrorist group. However, I can't help but not look at it as it's just a game they're playing. I think the establishment, whether you're on the right or the left, they are playing a different type of game than we are. And I think they're only disavowing and condemning Antifa because it's negative on their movement and getting their votes and getting their message across. I don't think they disagree with the violence, though. I don't think they really disagree with what Antifa's doing. They're so-called punching Nazis in the face, Trump supporters, or just shutting down any type of free speech rally there is. It's no longer just shutting down pro-Trump rallies. They had a prayer vigil where they came in and started kicking ass. Like if you have a rally for anything nowadays that seems to be government or really anything, Antifa is going to come in and kick some ass. And I really don't think that the establishment is against that. And the reason I say this is I feel like there's a big push, and I hear it in some of their policies, and the more and more that the policies that they're trying to push, it's more of a Bernie Sanders socialist push, a single payer type thing. Like, we all know that socialism ends up, communism. And I think that's the goal of the establishment and Antifa. Now, there are some anarchists in Antifa that don't like government, but there's some communists too, which are in complete contrast of each other. Somehow they're coming together to just overthrow the United States. It looks like that's what their goal is, and I really think that the establishment is for that, and it only benefits them if they achieve that. So when you start talking about a deep state plot, and you hear the deep state a lot, especially in alternative media. I think that they could be somewhat behind it. They definitely back Antifa and their movement. Not saying that they started Antifa or anything. That type of thinking has been going on for a long, long time. I don't think they started the feminist movement either, but I think they definitely have empowered it over the last couple of decades. They've hijacked ideologies. Just like you hijacked ISIS hijacked a religion. I don't think all Islamists are terrorists. All Muslims are terrorists or whatever. So I think that they're using this as an advantage, even though they're trying to disavow it now to save some face. And I really think the deep state wants what they're doing. They want them to achieve their goal. They want, it to bubble up on the underneath where you have these so-called white nationalists versus Antifas and Black Lives Matter, and we just all kill each other in the middle of the street so they can invoke martial law. I've talked about it before. And I think, for the most part, this should be a bipartisan argument here. This idea, this situation, we should all be condemning all these factions and be appalled by the violence in the street and that the race baiting that the mainstream media and the newspapers and everyone's doing. Pushing establishment people against Trump supporters, if you're a minority, you're against Trump supporters. If you're a Trump supporter, you're against the Antifa people. Like they're pushing everybody against each other. And really, I think for the most part, the people in the middle, which is the majority of the country, aren't white nationalists. They're not Black Lives Matter. They're not Antifas. They're none of this groups. And I think that this is a good area where we can all come together once again and push against that, rally against that type of message. Because ultimately, the only thing I can see coming out of this is martial law, dictatorship, and communism. And those are things that I don't think any of us want. As soon as you get martial law, the things that they say that they're fighting for in the streets and why, we're punching Nazis or whatever is because of liberties that's been trampled and rights and this and that. But as soon as martial law comes, through your neighborhood, you're going to lose the freedom of speech. You're going to lose your right to bear arms and many other liberties that you have that are way more important than the stupid politics that we argue over. Yes, we can sit here and argue over, whether abortion is right or should be legal and, those type of policies. But at the end of the day, I think the majority of the people in the center are appalled by all this stuff. And this is somewhere where we can be bipartisan and unite and rally against this and potentially cripple the deep state. Because I think it is funded by people like George Soros, and it's ran by the political elite, the global elite. And they want to see us, go pretty much belly up, whether it's through violence, whether it's through economically. They want to see the United States cripple and not be the superpower that it is, not be the freest country that it is, not be the greatest country that it is, and it's really worrisome to see this many people being ignited by this type of hatred that they're just feeling. They're just throwing gasoline on it. And I see it on both sides, really. I see some alternative media, pumping up the right side, beef up your numbers when you go to these protests, kick some Antifa ass. It's like, yeah, I'd love to punch a commie in the face, too. I'd love to punch a Nazi in the face. There's a lot of people I'd like to punch in the face. But violence ain't going to be the key, You think about some of the stuff that Ron Paul was talking about, not too long ago. Look at it. It's on your doorstep, A lot of people joke around that, the Orwellian idea in, 1984 and Big Brother's watching you. I think Google is. I think, through the WikiLeaks, we know that we're being supervised by a lot of different things, our phones and such. That, this type of idea, the deep state, pushing this type of narrative for a reason that benefits the global elite isn't far-fetched, really. It's not conspiracy theory, in my opinion. It's not like, we all should be in straitjackets. This is very realistic, and the probability of it, to me, is very high. There's too much shady shit that goes on, especially in Washington. That's why I think a lot of us in America voted for a guy like Donald Trump. He was anti-establishment. He was talking about draining the swamp, and I think that's what a lot of us want. And it just goes to show that, there's really no Democrat, Republican anymore. I mean, Republicans talked about killing Obamacare for 8 years, and then as soon as they had the chance, all of a sudden they can't do it. They're all in bed together. And I'm not saying that, John McCain or Paul Ryan's the leader of the deep state, but I think they've either been blackmailed or colluded into it in some sort. Maybe they have, they've been blackmailed or they have something on them, or they're totally, for the globalization of the world. Potentially, that's as simple as that is. They agree with the master plan. Not real sure exactly. I ain't got all the damn answers. I wish I did. If I knew who was running it all, I'd do my best John Q, but I ain't got all the answers for everybody. But I can tell you that it just seems very fishy, and I don't buy the disavowalment of Antifa. I think that, like I said, they at the end of the day, they support it. Just like they claim that, Trump, all his disavowalments of white nationalists, that he still supports and he's still a Nazi. Well, I'm saying the same thing about them. So, tell me what you think. I'd love to hear back from people. Tell me, if you agree with my analysis that, the deep state has something to do with this. If you think that I'm totally shit bat crazy, shit, let me know. I'd love to hear. You know, there's a lot of conspicuous things. I hear that there's at some of these rallies, people are seeing both groups with their professionally made signs and flags come off the same tour bus. If that's the case, people take out your phones, click pictures, make that shit go viral. Let's catch these bastards. You know, because something definitely, you know, smells a little fishy. You know, and I'm not near a seafood market, so there's something going on here, in my personal opinion. And anything that you can do to expose this shit, you know, please do. But once again, like I said, leave some comments. Let me know what you think. Like, dislike, subscribe. Peace out.